Well, I'm with Phil Gawne. We're outside the Viking in Castletown, and we have just witnessed the first election debate that Manx Radio is holding around the 12 constituencies, Phil. It was Arbory, Castletown and Malew, Graham Crogene, Steve Crowther, Tim Glover and Jason Morehouse. What did you make of that hour then?
I thought it was fascinating. There were some very interesting comments. It was interesting to note the sitting candidates obviously trying to defend their achievements, perhaps, over the course of the last 5 years, although it's fair to say that Mr. Crogene was more forceful in explaining what he'd actually achieved. Mr. Moorhouse was talking about asking lots and lots of questions and putting motions down, but didn't really get an awful lot of detail out about what he'd actually done as a result, what had been achieved by asking the questions. The other two candidates, the pretenders, if you like, Steve Crowther and Tim Glover, they certainly put over some very forceful points. They seemed to have thought through a lot of the issues. I felt that both had some excellent points, some good rhetoric. Obviously, Tim, as an ex-media man, had the more polished rhetoric, but generally, all four candidates gave creditable performances.
So you've been in this position, Phil. How genuine is a candidate when you're sitting there facing your potential constituents, you're being asked questions, you obviously want to give the best impression? How genuine are you at that point? Or are you just saying what you want to hear?
No, I think you are genuine. I mean, obviously it's difficult, and we did hear a few little hints of this, certainly from Mr. Crogene. You've been there, I mean, in Graham's case, he's been there for 15 years, and then he was sort of saying, well, he specifically mentioned the enterprise department. It's a bit clunky and slow and needs to improve, and you think, well, have you not had those conversations with the Economic Development Minister? However, it is very difficult in as much as a minister and indeed as a backbencher, you can't be held to account for all the actions that all your colleagues have done. So you have to give them a little bit of slack on that, I suppose. But there were some excellent questions tonight, some really good questioning, particularly in relation to housing. Housing seemed to be identified as the major issue, certainly in this area. There was a very sad tale from one parent about bad behaviour in one of the local schools. And again, I felt that all the candidates had answers. Certainly Minister Crogene, as a former education minister, had some of the more polished answers in relation to that one because he's had the opportunity, but he unfortunately used the education bill and said, well, there was lots of good stuff in there and that might have helped, but then I think Tim Glover pointed out that this was pulled because it was not fit for purpose. It was a good debate.
And speaking from your point of view, I mean, you're fairly familiar, I think it's fair to say, to this patch. It's the first debate, as we say, as we head around the 12 constituencies. Any pang to be back there tonight?
Absolutely not. One thing I should say, Steve Crowther's very strong line was, we've had 5 years here of wasted opportunity. He talked about the airport's technology gateway, or the new business park that's been planned now for 6, 7, 8 years, and very little apparently seems to have happened. He talked about Castle Rushen High School, great ideas, lots of plans, but still some significant distance away. The pool, the southern swimming pool, in a very poor condition, and no obvious plan at this stage as to how that's going to be resolved. So there were some good questions, good points made. I think the sitting candidates have clearly got a fight on their hands. There's no how would you put it? There's no duds in the field, but they're all quite capable, I think.
And I don't want you to tell us what your predictions are, but have you got a prediction in your head about how this outcome is going to be?
I think it's going to be tight. I think I'm fairly sure who's going to win one of the seats. but the final one, I'm not absolutely sure who'll get that second seat.